All aircraft carriers are large. They kind of have to be, after all, that's part of the job. But some take this idea of large to a whole new level. These are the largest and most powerful aircraft carriers in the world. But before we get started, make sure to subscribe to our channel and leave your like. Now, let's get started. Number 20. USS Gerald Ford. Let's begin not with the most basic of these aircraft carriers, but with the most powerful one in the world today. We are talking, of course, about the USS Gerald Ford, named after the 38th President of the United States. The U.S. often names these gigantic vessels after their presidents, and it's not hard to understand why. It's a way to honor the nation's leader, and what better way to do that than by emblazoning their name on the side of a colossal ship? But let's make one thing clear. Building this aircraft carrier was no easy feat. It took 8 years to build, and several more years to test it. It is so large that it surpasses in height many of the tallest buildings in major cities. It is over 300 meters long, the equivalent of almost 3 American football fields, and about 75 meters tall. Within this vast space, the aircraft carrier houses an impressive 25 decks. If you're not dizzy from this absurd scale yet, here's another fact. Operating it requires 4,500 crew members, each with specific duties. And that's not all. It can carry more than 75 aircraft, ready to be launched on missions whenever needed. This means that the United States has an entire air fleet ready to act at any moment. All they need is the Gerald Ford nearby. This vessel cost billions of dollars from start to finish, but the United States would probably say it was money well spent. Number 19. Nimitz Class. Although each U.S. Navy ship has its own name for identification, they are also given a class, which indicates the type of vessel you're dealing with. In the case of the Nimitz-class aircraft carriers, we are talking about the second largest aircraft carriers in the world, only behind newer models like the USS Gerald Ford. One reason for this is that the Nimitz class began construction in 1975, and 10 ships of this class were made. As I mentioned before, these ships are not easy to build, and that's why, even though the first one began construction in 1975, the last one in the class wasn't completed until 2009, and this alone gives you an idea of the amount of work involved in building just one ship. The supercarrier boasts a flight deck of 4.5 hectares, capable of carrying more than 60 aircraft. Each ship rises an impressive 20 stories above the waterline and can accommodate between 3,000 and 3,200 crew members, in addition to 1,500 air wing members and another 500 crew members. And this doesn't even mention the 2 nuclear reactors that power it or the vast arsenal of missiles and other types of weapons that help defend the vessel from enemy attacks. Now, it's true that the Nimitz-class ships will gradually be retired, but considering it took decades to replace this massive machine, it's easy to understand why the United States is so attached to it. Number 18. Queen Elizabeth Class. There was a time when the British Royal Navy was the most feared force in the world. They dominated vast regions thanks to their naval power, the ability to command powerful vessels, and to engage in lethal naval battles with ease. Although England is no longer as powerful today, that doesn't mean they aren't particular about the type of ship they own. And this is clear with the new Queen Elizabeth-class aircraft carrier they are currently building. The lead ship of this new fleet is the HMS Queen Elizabeth, named after the first HMS Queen Elizabeth, a super dreadnought battleship from World War I, which was in turn named in 1897 honor of Queen Elizabeth I. Today, it can carry 60 aircraft, including fixed-wing planes, helicopters, and autonomous vehicles, ideal for any situation the ship may need to face. The ship has been in development for quite some time, conducting its first sea trials in 2017, but only officially entered service in 2020. An irony, if you ask me. As if its construction weren't impressive enough, the HMS Queen Elizabeth can accommodate around 250 British Royal Marines, should there be a need for ground combat. For such operations, the aircraft are used to provide support during the fight. With an aircraft carrier of this class at its disposal, the British Royal Navy is once again a feared and respected naval force. Number 17. HMS Prince of Wales. Continuing with this specific class of aircraft carriers, the HMS Prince of Wales is the second ship of the Queen Elizabeth class. Unlike many other aircraft carriers you'll see on this list, the Prince of Wales does away with several traditional resources when receiving aircraft, especially the cables used to stop landing planes. This is a delicate matter, as you can imagine. Instead, the ship was designed to operate VSTOL, vertical short takeoff and landing aircraft, Currently, it is planned to carry up to 40 multi-role stealth F-35B Lightning II jets, as well as Merlin helicopters. Each of these aircraft helps in specific combat scenarios, such as fighting submarines even while they are submerged. But unlike the HMS Queen Elizabeth, the Prince of Wales was almost never completed. It was even on the list of cancelled projects, and only avoided that fate because the government intervened to ensure its full construction. To say it didn't come without problems, despite being completed years ago, is an understatement. The tests and trials weren't easy, including several flooding incidents that occurred in 2020. However, it underwent full sea trials in April of this year and is expected to join the rest of the fleet by 2023, securing another victory for the British. Number 16. Admiral Kuznetsov, Russian Federation. When it comes to Russia, you'd expect them to have all kinds of aircraft and giant aircraft carriers ready for war at any moment, especially because the country's current leadership doesn't exactly shy away from provoking people and nations to get what they want. Just look at Crimea, for instance. However, you may be surprised to know that the Admiral Kuznetsov is actually the only aircraft carrier in the entire Russian Federation. That being said, it is a massive vessel, considered the fourth largest aircraft carrier in the world today. It's a spacious ship with 14,700 square meters of flight deck and can accommodate various aircraft, including Su-33 fighter jets, MiG-29K, Su-25 UTG/UBPSTOVL, as well as K-27, K-27LD-32 helicopters, and many others. Its armament includes AK-630A guns with the CADS-N1, Kashtan CIWS system, P-700 Granite anti-ship cruise missiles, and RBU-12,000 UDAV-1 anti-submarine rocket launchers. Now, that was quite a tongue twister and very difficult to say, and my guinea pig Twinkle kept staring at me the whole time with a look of pure fascination. Perhaps the biggest irony of this ship, compared to others on the list, is the fact that it is powered by steam engines instead of more modern, viable, and powerful engines. It's also worth mentioning that the aircraft carrier hasn't had much luck throughout its life. It was even damaged after falling from a crane. Fast forward to today, and the vessel is not even in service. Currently, it is undergoing repairs and is not expected to return to active duty until 2022. Given all this information, it's no surprise that the Russian fleet doesn't have many aircraft carriers in its possession. Number 15. Liaoning. Now let's move on to another nation known for its power and for attempting to impose its vision on others. China. China truly has the largest military in the world, thanks to its massive population and a government that prioritizes power above almost everything. Except, of course, the propaganda about how great the nation is. But when it comes to its navy, it's not that different from Russia, as for a long time, it only had one aircraft carrier, the Liaoning. But here's the interesting detail. It wasn't a Chinese creation. In fact, it's the same type of vessel as the Admiral Kuznetsov class we just mentioned, and it didn't make its way to China in a very conventional manner. You see, it was originally created by the Soviet Union as part of the Admiral Kuznetsov class aircraft carriers, but it was eventually sold to Hong Kong. That's right, in 1998. And why? Because there was a plan to turn the vessel into a real floating casino. Considering Hong Kong is a true tourist trap, I can totally imagine them doing that. Seriously, it's not hard to visualize. This project ultimately failed, however, and it was eventually transferred to Ukraine, which planned to dismantle it. But then China stepped in, bought the vessel, and after refurbishing it, it became the Liaoning. Without a doubt, the Chinese consider it one of the crown jewels of their military power. Number 14. INS Vikramaditya aircraft carrier. Now let's move to India, which also has a large population but isn't exactly known for having a significant military presence, at least not one that is widely discussed, like those of the United States, United Kingdom, China, or Russia. The INS Vikramaditya is the largest ship in the Indian Navy, and rightfully so. This warship measures 284 meters in length and 60 meters in width. The short takeoff and arrested recovery, stowbar, flight deck can carry more than 30 aircraft, including a combination of helicopters, planes, and more. The aircraft carrier is equipped with anti-ship missiles, air-to-air missiles, guided bombs, and rockets. So, at first glance, it's clear that this is a powerful and imposing vessel. But, as you might have guessed, it wasn't originally from India. Can you guess who built the original version of this ship? That's right, the Russians. Originally, this vessel was part of the Russian Navy's Kiev-class aircraft carriers, but it was decommissioned in 1995. That's when India began negotiations to acquire it. It took many talks, but they managed to strike a deal and even carried out a complete refurbishment to transform it into what it is today. Still, the question remains, would India like to have more than one aircraft carrier, considering several other nations have many more than they do? But then again, they actually do, and we'll talk about that soon. Number 13. Charles de Gaulle Aircraft Carrier. Now let's move to a nation with an interesting history with navies, France. At one point they were also feared at sea, especially during the time of Napoleon, when he used his navy to conquer much of Europe, even though he never succeeded in dominating England. Nowadays, France is no longer a superpower in this sense, but they still have a need for aircraft carriers, and indeed, they built one that stands out among the rest. The Charles de Gaulle aircraft carrier was the first French surface ship powered by nuclear energy and is the largest warship in Western Europe. It is also the only nuclear-powered aircraft carrier in service outside of the United States Navy, and that's quite an achievement because, as we've seen, other nations like China and Russia still use steam engines. Nuclear engines are much more powerful, more reliable, and yes, much more dangerous. But what's the fun of being at sea without the threat of nuclear holocaust? And this vessel is large enough to support up to 40 fixed-wing aircraft and helicopters. That said, the ship had its own challenges to overcome, including a 6-month refurbishment to replace a more basic engine with a nuclear one. And as I've already mentioned, it was probably a good choice for them. They also refurbished much of the interior, all to improve the overall design of the ship. Number 11. São Paulo Aircraft Carrier. Now, let's head to Brazil. But what awaits us in South America? Well, the São Paulo, currently the 8th largest aircraft carrier in the world. This machine weighs more than 32,000 tons at full load and is currently operating under the command of the Brazilian Navy. The São Paulo accommodates 1,920 crew members, including 1,338 from the ship's main crew and 582 from the air wing. Its flight deck can accommodate 39 aircraft, including fighter jets, fixed-wing planes, and helicopters. The onboard armament includes SACP Crotal ADIR systems, Simbad launchers, and naval guns for protection against surface and aerial threats. Exactly what you need to be prepared when commanding one of these giants. Remember, aircraft carriers are designed to be mobile bases of operations, so they can intervene in any situation, regardless of the circumstances. One surprising element of this ship is that it is powered by 6 powerful boilers that propel it forward, making it the most powerful conventional aircraft carrier in the world. That is, among those that don't use nuclear reactors. Another interesting detail is that this ship is older than you might think. It was originally owned by France since 1963. Then it was sold to Brazil in 2000, where it was transformed into the ship we know today. Number 11. INS Virat. Now, I said I would talk about the Indian Navy again, and here we are with the INS Virat, currently the 10th largest aircraft carrier in the world. It is an aircraft carrier of the Centaur class and the oldest ship in the Indian fleet. In fact, it is their flagship, which is quite interesting, let's be honest. If you're wondering whether this was also a refurbished Russian ship, like other Indian aircraft carriers I've mentioned, the answer is no. But the INS Virat did have a previous owner. Originally, it was commissioned by the Royal Navy as HMS Hermes in 1959, and then, in 1986, it was sold to India. It might seem strange that many of these aircraft carriers are second-hand, but you have to make use of what's available. After all, these ships are neither easy nor cheap to build. I mean, cars are bought, sold, and refurbished. So why not aircraft carriers? It's basically the same idea, right? The INS Virat has a full displacement of 28,700 tons and can carry up to 30 fixed-wing and rotary-wing aircraft, such as the Sea Harrier, Westland Sea King, Hal Chetak, and Hal Dhruv. It houses a crew of 1,350 people, including 43 officers. And like any good aircraft carrier, it is equipped with various guns, missiles, and armaments to ensure its defense during combat. Despite using steam turbines, it is still capable of generating a good amount of power. Number 10. Cavour, the Italian aircraft carrier. Moving on to another country on the list, let's talk about Italy, as they have an impressive aircraft carrier called Cavour. The ship was designed to combine aerial operations with fixed-wing aircraft, vertical short takeoff and landing VSTOL aircraft, helicopters, command and control operations, and the transport of both military and civilian personnel, along with heavy vehicles. Now, if necessary, they can adapt the ship's main deck to accommodate things like tanks and other ground combat vehicles, depending on the situation. The aircraft carrier has also been equipped multiple times to accommodate larger and better aircraft, including the capacity to house more advanced planes. It was a ship truly built for Italy, unlike some other ships, and its construction began in 2001. It didn't achieve full operational release until 2007-2010, again showing just how long it takes not only to build these ships, but also to actually get them in the water and functioning where they need to be. Even now, in 2021, the aircraft carrier is still undergoing tests, even joining the United States to help them utilize new aircraft that were approved. Number 9. Juan Carlos Thais. The Spanish Navy also has a fascinating history, although admittedly not in the way they would like to boast, because at one point they were indeed a powerful navy, embarking on expeditions all around the world, including to the New World in both North and South America. However, they also had a tough time during a key period of their empire, when their ships were sinking while loaded with all kinds of treasures. And if you've ever heard of a treasure ship being found in the ocean, it's likely it was a Spanish ship. That said, they managed to recover with modern and very special ships, like the Juan Carlos Thais. It was the first ship in the Navy to use diesel-electric propulsion, allowing the ship to reach speeds of up to 21 knots. The ship can accommodate Harriers, F-35 Lightning II, CH-47 Chinooks, V-22 Ospreys, and a variety of other aircraft. This makes this aircraft carrier highly versatile and a valuable asset for the Spanish military, especially since it can house more than 1,000 soldiers inside, should there be a need to land troops. Number 8. USS America. Now, do you want to guess which nation the USS America comes from? Take a good look at the name and maybe you'll figure it out. Listen, USS America. Which nation could that be? No, it's not Canada. Just kidding, of course. It's the United States. Who would name a ship after themselves? It would be strange if it weren't. But although not as impressive as the USS Gerald Ford, this ship is still special in its own right. The USS America is the first ship of the America class and was designated to be the flagship of a U.S. Navy amphibious ready group. It was designed to carry helicopters and vertical short takeoff and landing VSTOL aircraft, which can perform the functions of large aircraft carriers when configured with 20 F-35B jets. And, just like the Spanish aircraft carrier I mentioned, it has a hybrid electric propulsion system that allows the ship to move quickly. Now, you might find it strange. Moving on to another country on the list, I'll talk about Italy because they have an impressive aircraft carrier called the Cavour. The ship was designed to combine air operations with fixed-wing aircraft, VSTOL aircraft, helicopters, command and control operations, and the transportation of military or civilian personnel, along with heavy vehicles. Now, if needed, they can adapt the main deck of the ship to accommodate things like tanks and other land combat vehicles depending on the situation at hand. The aircraft carrier has also been equipped several times to accommodate larger and better armaments and aircraft, including the ability to house better planes as well. It was a ship that was truly built for Italy, unlike certain other ships, and its construction began in 2001. It didn't achieve full operational release until 2010, again showing just how long it takes not only to build these ships, but also to actually get them in the water and functioning where they need to be. Even now, in 2021, the aircraft carrier is still undergoing testing, even joining the United States to help them use the new planes that have been approved. Number 7. USS America. Now, I promise this is not the same vessel. The previous one was an LHA-6 model, while this one is a CV-66 model. But what's the difference? Well, age and capability. The USS America CV-66 was one of the 3 Kitty Hawk-class aircraft carriers built for the U.S. Navy in the 1960s. It was sent on various missions in multiple locations around the world, even serving in Vietnam for a time. It also served in the Gulf Wars during Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm. As you can see, it was a highly decorated ship, which makes it even more ironic what actually happened to it in the end. It would eventually be used for weapon testing, meaning they were testing weapons on the ship, and eventually this old battle-hardened vessel was sunk. It remains the largest warship ever sunk, which is why the name USS America became available to be used on another ship. Still, you have to feel for everyone who served on that ship, knowing what happened to it, being sunk by its very creators. Number 6. USS Kitty Hawk. Now, you'll notice I'm on a streak of US ships, and this really shows how much the US loves its massive ships. It probably has something to do with the help they provided during World War II regarding Japan. The Kitty Hawk was the first of 3 Kitty Hawk-class aircraft carriers to be commissioned, and the last to be decommissioned, showing that it managed to keep operating for a long time. The ship was originally launched on May 21, 1960, sponsored by Mrs. Camelia F. McElroy, the wife of Secretary of Defense Neil H. McElroy. Now, if you're wondering how long it served, it was 49 years. And given that it was built during the 1950s and launched in the 1960s, this means the ship witnessed several important moments in history, traveling around the world, including being a key ship in Japan during the peace period. Eventually, though, like all great warships, it was retired from service and scrapped. Number 5. USS Constellation. No, I'm not done with the American ships yet. You'll have to bear with me. The USS Constellation CV-64 was an aircraft carrier of the Kitty Hawk class and was the third U.S. Navy ship to be named after the new constellation of stars on the U.S. flag. One thing that really distinguishes this aircraft carrier from all the others on my list is that it was a very fast ship. And if you don't believe me, well, in 1985, there was a race held by a group of aircraft carriers, and the USS Constellation won, which is pretty cool, right? But is it really a good use of taxpayer money? The ship was also one of the U.S. Navy's flagship ships for a long time, further showing how impressive it was as a vessel and how the U.S. Navy has several types of aircraft carriers. But to give them credit, they're preparing for practically anything, not to mention that the most massive carriers have a special purpose, just like the America-class ships, in their own way. Sometimes having a diverse lineup is really a good thing. It relied on that, and also, the Constellation was the last conventional aircraft carrier of the U.S., truly marking the end of an era, if you will. It served well and was scrapped in 2017 after a long time of service. Number 4. Shandong. As I mentioned earlier, China only had one aircraft carrier for a long time, but that changed when they acquired the Shandong. The difference between this aircraft carrier and the previous one is that this one was actually built by China, making it China's first-generation aircraft carrier, and it's available on Amazon. Just kidding! It came with a certain amount of secrecy from the Chinese government, as they didn't publicly confirm the ship's existence until construction was well underway. In fact, there were satellite images showing the construction in 2015, and only after that did the Chinese say anything official about the ship. It's not surprising they tried to keep it a secret, since they had never built their own aircraft carrier before and probably didn't want too many others, especially the United States, to know what they were doing. Since then, they've built one, which means they can now build more. Number 3. Bern. Should I go back to France? Sounds fun, right? Well, that's because they have a second aircraft carrier I want to talk about, the Béarn. The Béarn was an aircraft carrier converted from an incomplete warship of the Normandy class for the Marine Nationale, which is the French Navy, during the 1920s. It was used in 1928, and France intended to use the aircraft carrier as a new tactic for aviation missions, becoming a vital piece early on in the World War before the French had to surrender. It was the only aircraft carrier they managed to build during the war. But what happened to it? Well, the United States took it in so that the Germans couldn't get it for up to 4 years. Then it was taken to Puerto Rico, where it was adapted after World War II, and in the 1960s was considered too uneconomical, so it was sold for scrap, which is really sad. Number 2. Clemenceau. What's this? You want to stay in France? Well, good choice, because I have another ship for you, the Clemenceau. It was the 6th aircraft carrier of the French Navy and the flagship of its class. The aircraft carrier served from 1961 to 1997 and was then dismantled and recycled in 2009. The ship, along with its sister vessel, were two of the main aircraft carriers of the French Navy during their service time, and throughout its career, the Clemenceau sailed over 1 million nautical miles during 3,125 days at sea. That's a lot of traveling, and it was also in action during that time. It participated in various exercises and cruises, seeing action in the Lebanese Civil War, the Gulf War, and air operations over the former Yugoslavia. Number 1. JS Izumo. At one point, Japan had the fiercest fleet of ships in the world, and that's why World War II was fought on 2 fronts. Nowadays, however, Japan doesn't have and cannot fully rebuild its forces, but it still has some important ships in its fleet, like the JS Izumo, officially classified as a multi-role operational destroyer. It is the flagship of the Izumo class of the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force. After the completion of the process, the Izumo will be the first Japanese aircraft carrier since World War II, showing just how much Japan has been without its navy, which was once so renowned, and this may also signal a change in tone, if you catch my drift. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed our content, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Don't forget to check out other interesting content appearing on your screen right now, and I'll see you in the next video. See you next time!